A couple years ago, I made my first video on this channel, titled Why Tai Lung is an Excellent Villain. It's by far the best any video has done on my channel, so with me running out of ideas, I decided now's a good time to go back to the well. Back to Old Reliable. Back to one of my favorite movie trilogies of all time, a series that I've cheekily mentioned in almost every video I've done since. Today, we are finally going back to Kung Fu Panda. Kung Fu Panda is a trilogy that holds a special place in my heart. Are there better movies out there? Sure, but something about this movie, a movie that's this colorful and funny, yet tense and heart-wrenching, fluid animation and action, compelling characters, all for a trilogy that has no right being as good as it is. A movie called Kung Fu Panda should not be this good. But it is. In my last Kung Fu Panda video, I focused on the villain, Tai Lung. Today, we are looking at Kung Fu Panda 2 and its villain, Lord Shen. Kung Fu Panda 2 is what I consider to be a perfect sequel. It's just as good, if not better than the first. I honestly go back and forth on which is better between Kung Fu Panda 1 and 2 because I love them both so much. Kung Fu Panda 1 has better action and comedy, while Kung Fu Panda 2 excels in its darker tone and development of its characters. Po gets great development, Tigress gets great development, but the character we're focusing on in this video is the villain, Lord Shen. So, let's talk about him. In the first Kung Fu Panda movie, we opened with Po's dream sequence, narrated by Po, with a different, distinct animation style. Similarly, Kung Fu Panda 2 opens with a flashback in a different, distinct animation style, narrated by the soothsayer explaining Lord Shen's backstory. I love the creativity in the animation here, as the narration explains that Shen's parents, who ruled over Gongmen City, invented fireworks. The fireworks were meant to bring joy to the people, but Shen saw the fireworks as a weapon. Fearful of their son's dark path, Shen's parents met with the soothsayer, who told them that if Shen continued down his path, he would be defeated by a warrior of black and white, as shown by the yin-yang symbol. Shen overhears this and decides to wipe out the pandas. This is not hyperbole. Lord Shen, in this kids movie, commits genocide of an entire race. And you wonder why Po's dad is a goose. And this is only the opening flashback, just a taste for how dark this movie and this villain can get. Shen expects to come back a hero, but is banished by his parents. He swears revenge as he is banished from his home. Then we cut to a factory on a cold, snowy mountain. Wolves working, bathed in red light from the embers. The weapon is nearly complete, but they need more metal. Shen demands they find more, claiming that all of China will be his. All of this before we even get a title card. From the beginning, we know Shen's goals and desires and how far he is willing to go. Shen sends his army of wolves to get more metal. This leads them to the Jade Palace, and we get a really fun fight with the wolves and Po and the Furious Five. The action is so fluid and fun, and I love seeing all the heroes working as a team. But when Po sees a symbol on one of the wolves' armor, he has a flashback to his mother. This momentary shock allows the wolves to get away with the metal. Meanwhile, Shen is back in Gongmen City, which is now defended by Kung Fu Masters Rhino, Ox, and Croc. Shen, voiced brilliantly by Gary Oldman, tells them to leave his home. When they refuse, he's relieved as he reveals their parting gift, as in it will part them. Part of you here, part of you there, part of you way over there, staining the wall. I love this peacock already. When Shen fights these Kung Fu masters, he's no match. Unlike Tai Lung, Shen is not a physical freak who excels in hand-to-hand combat. Shen is a small white peacock who relies on weapons and wolves to do his bidding, preferring his mind over physical fortitude. But when he has to fight, Shen relies on deception. He uses string, hidden daggers in his feathers themselves a sword, still lethal, but it makes it so Lord Shen never has to rely on hand-to-hand combat, for he is easily overpowered. When Master Rhino beats Shen, Shen unveils his weapon, blasting a fiery red ball of light, killing Master Rhino. Now Shen is back, and his home is his once again. Lord Shen and Tai Lung are not the same kind of villain. Tai Lung is established by breaking out of prison and going after the Dragon Scroll, where the heroes try to stop him. Shen, on the other hand, gets back into his home and the heroes are coming to him. Tai Lung, who's the stronger fighter, goes after the body, using his strength in combat to beat the Furious Five, Master Shifu, and nearly beat Po. But Lord Shen goes after the mind. But there is another character with a mind to combat Lord Shen, the Soothsayer. The Soothsayer is a great character to have, someone who sees through him and still sees good in Lord Shen. She's the only character who can poke at his insecurities because she holds his fortune over her head. She shows him his future again, and says that nothing has changed. We see fear in Shen's eyes, followed by anger, as he shatters the Soothsayer's bowl. Then the wolf comes running up the stairs, telling Shen he saw a panda. Shen leaps and puts a claw on his throat, looking him in the eye, saying there are no more pandas. Here is the first instance of Shen crumbling. He thought he had won, and wiped out all of the pandas, only to find out there was a kung fu warrior still out there and that his fate has not changed. He demands that Po be arrested and prepares for when they will meet. But the Soothsayer sees through him again, telling Shen that he is afraid. These two minds battle constantly, with the Soothsayer still seeing good in Shen, while Shen tries desperately to change the fate the Soothsayer has foretold. Their last scene together comes after the fight scene that led to the fall of Shen's home. Shen believes it's a small sacrifice when all of China will be his, and the Soothsayer responds by saying, "Then will you finally be satisfied? Will the subjugation of the whole world finally make you feel better? The cup you choose to fill has no bottom. It is time to stop this madness so your parents can rest in peace." Shen claims that his parents hated him, but the Soothsayer tells him that sending Shen away is what killed them. And for a moment, a brief moment, we see remorse in Shen's eyes. But at this point, he's come too far. He sends the Soothsayer away for a final time, and she wishes him happiness. After everything Shen has said and done, she still wishes him happiness. Shen replies that happiness must be taken, and he will take his. If only there was someone who could stop it. When Po and the gang hear about Master Rhino's death, their goal becomes clear: to travel to Gangman City and stop Lord Shen. Only Po has no idea what he's getting into. On the way there, we get an awesome montage showing Po and Shen in the yin-yang symbol, with Hans Zimmer's excellent score, and an amazing shot of Shen looking over the city. But when Shen calls for Po's arrest and he's eventually caught, we see Shen and Po meet for the first time. The scene is purposefully underwhelming. Shen is expecting a great warrior and meets the big, fat panda. Po completely steps on the introduction Shen rehearsed. This may not be the great warrior he feared, but Po still manages to throw Shen off his game just by being himself. But Po also proves to be smarter than he looks, as he reveals a toy in the cage instead of Mantis, who frees Po and the Five. This allows them to destroy the weapon and get the jump on Shen. When Po has Shen where he wants him, Shen defensively fluffs out his feathers and Po stops, recognizing the symbol on Shen's feathers from the wolf's armor. The flashback of Po's mother plays again. Shen was there the last night Po saw his parents. This distraction allows Shen to escape, to reveal more weapons that he uses to bring down the building he called his home. A small sacrifice when all of China will be his. The next time Po and Shen meet, it's in the factory. In a great scene, Tigress and the Five choose to leave without Po, believing that his distractions with Shen and his parents would get him killed. But Po sneaks out to confront Shen. The color red holds a lot of symbolism with Lord Shen. It can represent passion, courage, anger, love, all emotions battling for supremacy within Shen. The passion and anger fueling his evil deeds, lacking the courage to admit his wrongdoings, and his fear of his fate that lies before him, lacking the love that could have stopped him from becoming this monster. Red is the color of the symbol on Shen's feathers. Red is the color of the weapon's fatal blast. Red is the color of Shen's palace. Red is the color of the sky when Shen overlooks Gongmen City. So, of course, Shen's weapon factory is going to be bathed in red. You could argue this is just to look cool, but seeing what other symbols lie within this masterpiece of a film, I would like to think differently. Po asks Shen about the night. Shen remains cold and they fight while the Five are fighting to get to Po. Again, Shen fights dirty, with the wolves as backup and using the environment to his advantage. But Po eventually traps Shen with the blades of a fork on either side of his throat, demanding answers. Shen lies, of course, telling Po his parents never loved him. Po is in shock, distracted, confused. After only just finding out about his parents and realizing Shen was there, then hearing this, he's in no place to call the Peacock's bluff. Shen then offers to heal Po, doing so with the blast from his weapon, the fiery red beam sending Po flying through the factory wall out into the sea. If not for the pan shielding him, Po would likely be dead. All because Shen had power over Po's mind. He found a weakness in Po's family, where Shen played a personal role in their deaths, and he exploited it, telling Po he was there that night so he can get away, telling Po his parents didn't love him so he can blast him with the weapon. The same thing Shen said about his own parents earlier to the soothsayer. Shen knows where to attack Po's insecurities because he went through similar trauma. Obviously, these are not at all comparable. Shen was kicked out by his parents because he committed genocide on Po's entire race. These are not equivalent, but the parallel is there, as Shen projects his own fears onto Po. But the panda is not dead yet. After Po takes the brunt of Shen's weapon, he washes up on the shore, where he's found by the soothsayer. She saves him and nurses him back to health, so he can fulfill his destiny. The village they're in is the same village Po grew up in, and here he is finally able to find inner peace in one of the most beautiful scenes in the entire trilogy. With his inner peace, Po is able to relive the memory of the night his parents died. We see the scene play out, accompanied by an amazing score by Hans Zimmer, the memories layered over shots of the raindrop moving through Po's hands and arms. Then, as the score reaches a climax, the animation switches from the flashback style to the 3D style of the movie, as we see Po put in the radish box by his mother, who's chased down by Lord Shen and the wolves. It all connects. This scene, while not having much to do with the video topic, is a masterful scene that I couldn't just skip over. But now, Po has peace of mind. He knows who he is and is finally ready to face Lord Shen. God damn it, this movie is so good. Po goes back to free the five and stop Shen, as Shen tries to bring the boats out into the harbor to begin his conquest. As the ship sets sail, Lord Shen fires on a bridge with people on it. Then we see Po. We get some good comedy from Po before he frees the five. We see some awesome action, Po and the five working together. Masters Ox and Croc join the fight, Shifu joins the fight. This is my Avengers Endgame. This is how I win. Eventually, the heroes use Shen's boats to block the bridge, and Shen somehow gets even more evil, ordering to fire on his own ships and army. When the wolf refuses, Shen throws a knife at his throat and lights the cannon, destroying his ships and killing his own army to get to the harbor. Then, in the harbor, it's just Po, facing what's left of Shen's entire fleet. He checks on Tigers, who took the brunt of the blast, before rising to face Lord Shen. They fire the cannon, but with Po's inner peace, he deflects it, and he does it again and again. As Po finds peace, Shen loses his power over the mind, therefore losing control and becoming more and more unhinged as he keeps firing blast after blast. With the final blast, Po catches it, spinning so fast his body forms the same yin-yang symbol the soothsayer saw in her bowl from the beginning. Lord Shen, even after everything he's done to stop it, only sealed his fate. Skadoosh. When the dust settles, Shen asks Po how he found peace after everything he did to him. He scarred him for life. But that's the thing. Scars heal. No, they don't. Wounds heal. Po tells Shen to let go of the past. The only thing that matters is what you choose to be now. And Shen, still, can't make the right choice. He attacks Po, and they have one last quick fight. Shen using all of his tricks with the sword and the daggers, cutting the ropes as he does so, which leads to his own weapon falling on top of him. And in the last moment, when Shen looks up, he closes his eyes, accepting his death. Kung Fu Panda 2 is a movie I adore, and while there are a lot of aspects I love about this movie that I didn't get to discuss, a huge part of my enjoyment comes from its villain, Lord Shen. He's established from the beginning with a backstory and goal. He's willing to go farther and darker than most villains in animated movies, massacring an entire race and killing his own army. Unlike Tai Lung, Lord Shen is not the great physical fighter, instead relying on weapons, deception, and wolves. Shen relies on his power over the mind to torment Po with his past and their direct connection. While Tai Lung was more connected to Shifu in his backstory, as he and Po go for more of a student versus former student dynamic, Shen and Po's backstories are directly connected. While Tai Lung was a physical threat, Shen was a mental threat, who would kill with little to no remorse. But when Po found his inner peace, he was able to overcome Shen's power over the mind, like how he overcame Tai Lung's physical power in the first movie. Po became the yin-yang symbol that the soothsayer saw in her bowl, defeating Lord Shen despite his genocidal efforts to change his fate. There are a lot of other people who have made great videos on this character, and I think it's because this character is so intriguing. The dark lengths he's willing to go, his power over the mind, all of these aspects make this little white peacock one of the darkest, most menacing villains in animation.